So as we wrap up the 8th National Farm to Cafeteria Conference, I have the pleasure of introducing our first closing plenary speaker, CheFarmer Matthew Raiford. Matthew is a chef and farmer and owner of the Farmer and the Larder, which is a culinary mixed-use space in Brunswick, Georgia. And he is also a sixth-generation farmer with his siblings on his family's land that they've owned in Georgia since 1874. So I'm going to tell a little personal story as a way of introducing Matthew. The first time I met Matthew, we were serving together as U.S. delegates to Terra Madre's International Celebration, or Slow Foods International Celebration in Italy. Matthew was dressed in a chef apron and preparing an incredible Southern meal. I think I ate 2 helpings of everything. He was celebrating culture and cuisine along with those that were enjoying the meal he prepared. During the event, we were fortunate to be enjoying food from around the world, as well as Matthew's, and I was really proud that Matthew was among those that was representing the United States. Fast forward, the next time I met Matthew was on a National Sustainable Agriculture Coalition farm tour at their biannual meeting, and this time he was actually dressed in overalls, talking on his farm about composting, planting, teaching folks about the land and the labor of food production. In these first 2 meetings alone, between Terra Madre, where he was in his apron, and then on his farm in Georgia in his overalls, he demonstrated that he truly is a CheFarmer. As I've gotten to know Matthew over the years, I've realized how incredible it is that he also truly embodies what the Farm to Cafeteria movement is all about. He connects local producers with consumers, engages children and community in food and agriculture, celebrates food, and advances food justice. It is truly an honor to welcome CheFarmer Matthew Raiford to the stage.
How's everyone doing? Did everyone have some of those wonderful cookies and the gluten-free? That thing was like awesome. As a chef, I was just like, gluten-free? Wait, it was good. It was really good. I have to tell you, it was amazing, if I do say so myself. You know, when I talked to Helen the first time about possibly becoming the speaker for this, the thought process of what I wanted to say, I happened to look to my sister and say, hey, you know anything about the farm to school movement? And she was like, oh yeah, and we started this whole conversation about when we were kids and what cafeteria workers were like. And then she goes, do you know where we're sitting? And I said, yeah, we're sitting in the old schoolhouse. And she was like, that's what you should start off talking about. So in 1907, my family gave up an acre of land to put a school on so that colored children from Brantley County to Brunswick, Georgia could go to school. So from 1907 to 1955, it was the only school that coloreds could go to out in the Brooklyn community area. So my sister said, well, if you look at it from that standpoint, why would they put it on our family farm? Why would London Gilliard give up this land for them to put it on the family farm? Well, because there was food there, and we knew there were going to be a lot of kids going there, and they had to be fed along the way. So I'm going to start that story off by saying Rome wasn't built in a day. Now, I'm talking about something that started in 1907, and here we are, 2016, still trying to figure out how to feed kids. It's a long time that we've been doing it, at least, or that I know of my family trying to continue to do it. So let's start talking about that expression, Rome wasn't built in a day. In the English language, it was actually attributed to a playwright named John Haywood in 1538. He also had a couple of other quotes that I'm sure everyone in this room is extremely familiar with. Out of sight, better late than, the more the, many hands make, now let's talk. Okay, let's talk. Those are some powerful quotes to put into like this one guy translated all these things into the English language. Well, here's what I see us doing right now using just those quotes. So let's look at what it would take from a show of hands in the room of what people are doing. So farmers, raise your hand. How many farmers do we have in the room? Okay. How many chefs do we have in the room? Raise your hands. Okay. How many dietitians, supervisors of areas, cafeteria workers that are becoming supervisors? We have a lot of people in this room, right? So what I understand so far, we've had about 1,000 or more people that happen to come in. Did anybody pay attention to lunch today? So let's just talk about a school system that has one school with 1,000 students in it. How many white coats do you remember sitting up here? Standing up here with a lot of them, right? A lot of white coats. But we have less than that feeding 1,000 kids in the cafeteria. So for you to eat that wonderful, nutritious meal that you had today, it took a lot of those white coats. So we need to start thinking about how are we going to grow this system to have the right amount of people that are trained to do the right things. I think I poked my head into Montana Fresh Cook. Am I saying it right, Montana folks? I think you have some, what is it? Montana Cook Fresh, thank you. So they are talking about the training program that they have, that they've put together, right? So that cafeteria workers and others can learn the skills needed to be able to cook. I talked to Kimberly Shaw a little while ago, and she talked about what it took to move from having cans to actually having fresh food, and just that training that was necessary for people to go outside the box thinking, so to speak, from warming up food to actually cooking nutrient-dense food. So now we have to think about all those pieces coming together, okay? So many hands make light work, right? We need to have people that can train. We need to have people that want to be trained. And we also have to have people that want to be in charge of those people that want to be trained. So we're talking about a whole lot of people just in that training mode and just the cooking portion. Farmers, I didn't see a lot of farmers' hands, right? And for some people go, well, you know, it's becoming that season. You know, we're starting to plant. Some of us already have tomatoes coming up. Others are just starting to plant tomatoes. We have to figure out the season. When we think about that, let's talk about how many people have a smartphone. Pull it out. Open up the calculator. Open up the calculator. We're going to talk numbers so that you don't think that I'm some kind of crazy dude that came up with this number arbitrarily off the top of my head. I don't know what I'm talking about. So start off with the number 1,000 because we were talking about 1,000, right? All 1,000 of those students need to have 4 ounces of fruit. Give me a number. Okay? Divide that by 16. What number is that? They need 250 pounds of edible fruit a day, just those 1,000. But now let's multiply that by 5. 1,250. That's how many pounds of fruit you need to have for those kids every single day for 1 week. Well, let's do it by 4. That's 1 month. That's 5,000, am I right? So 5,000 pounds of fruit for 1 month. About 10 months of school, right? 50,000 pounds of edible fruit for 1 school. That's a lot of fruit. I see some people like grabbing their hands like, I hadn't really kind of thought about it like that. 50,000 pounds of fruit that have to be cut, sliced, diced, minced, chopped, prepared, set to the side, and sent to 1,000 students. That's a lot of fruit. Are any of your districts right now prepared to do 50,000 pounds of fruit a year? Any districts? Somebody raise their hand. Anybody? Right, crickets. Crickets. Because that's the reality of what we're up against. Okay? We have to really be honest with ourselves of what we are actually up against and what it's going to take. Here's my saying, Rome wasn't built in a day. So, many hands make light work. So we need a lot of people to start cutting that fruit, right? So out of sight, out of mind. Then we don't ask the kids what they like to eat. We just give them what we think they should eat. So they're kind of out of sight, out of mind. We're not even worried about them. But then I heard some best practices in here earlier. I heard someone in one of the rooms I happened to pop my head into, they talked about getting the kids to where they're not only seeing what's coming in, but they're also part of the process of making things happen, right? So now we're talking about school gardens. We're talking about getting farmers to come out and talk to them. We're talking about getting chefs to cook things, put things together so that there's some tasting. Those are some of the things that we have to do so that there is no out of sight, out of mind kind of process, right? That we're actually asking the kids, hey, what is one of your favorite fruits? We were just talking about pineapples earlier. It's a lot of work. Anybody ever cut up a pineapple? Show of hands of cutting up pineapples, right? So all of you know that cutting one pineapple takes you a hot minute. So you know good and well if it takes you a hot minute when you have to cut up pineapple for 1,000 students, it's a lot. So we have to think about that, right? And then, do the kids really want pineapples? I don't know. Do they want blueberries? Do they want strawberries? What are some of the fruits that they happen to like? Are we going to take a poll just to kind of see what's going on so that we don't create waste? Because waste is a huge thing that I see every time I go by a school cafeteria. Lots of food gets thrown away. And then we don't send it to be composted somewhere. Okay? So now that food that got thrown away is out of sight, out of mind, right? We need to bring that back into the food system. Think about turning it into compost. Think about recycling it, so to speak. Well, better late than never. So we're talking about it, right? This is the 8th annual conference, so better late than never. Okay? We need to talk about it, and we need to talk about it aggressively. There were 1,000 people here. Here's the challenge. 1,000 of you should be going back home talking to another 1,000 people. Not just going back talking about, well, I'm just going to talk about my little box, and hopefully everybody shake it up and we can work in my little box. If it's 1,000 of you here this year, the challenge is that next year we're at 2,000 people here. And the reason for that is because many hands make light work. The more people know, the more we engage with other people, the more people know that's going on. So everybody here has went to some sort of class since they've been here, right? We didn't just walk the halls and wait for the food, did we? Because that's kind of what I did for a few minutes. But just so that you know, when you get knowledge, you have a responsibility to give it to other people. Now, I'm a Marvel Spider-Man kind of guy when his uncle said, with great power comes great responsibility. Well, guess what? All the Marvel movies are coming out right now, so we're going to use that also. All of you have some power right now because all of you have garnered some sort of knowledge from some class that you went to. It is your responsibility now, today, to think about all the people you're going to shout at the rooftops and talk to about it. Because if you don't, guess what's going to happen? It's going to sit right here in this room. And that's the challenge. Can I go back and talk to somebody else? And what am I going to say? How many classes did I really actually take notes? Can I talk about the picture that's in my phone? Can I say what that person said? That's the challenge. We have to be able to do that. The whole many hands makes light work. A brick is friggin' heavy when you're the only person carrying it. We have to realize that if we're going to build this, that we don't stop building it. Every day we have to lay a brick. That's the way the city gets built. That's the way the system stays effective. Because guess what? Anytime you start building something and you stop, you have to recalculate, remeasure, rethink. Recalculate, remeasure, rethink. So you're always on reset. We don't want our system to be on reset. We want to progress to the point to where every time we have one of these conferences, we have more farmers. We have more chefs. We have more systems in place. The thing is that if we have almost 50 states that's represented here, everybody has a different problem at your locale. But are we talking to each other? Is Georgia, because I'm from Georgia, are we talking to what's going on in Alaska? It's on the other side of the world, top corner. Are we talking to them? Like, I'm having a problem in my state. I noticed that you've overcome that problem. We have to talk to each other. Communication is how these things get built. It is not us sitting back on our laurels hoping that somebody else will pick up the mantle if we slow down for a second. It's imperative that we look at all the systems that are in front of us, all of them. So we have STEM, right? Did anybody see the STEM stuff upstairs? Everybody knows what STEM stands for, right? Holler it out. Science, technology, engineering, math, right? So we have this program that we're required to teach the kids. Well, why aren't we using that to create solar power at our schools? Why aren't we using that to figure out how to do rain catchment systems, water catchment systems? Why aren't we using that to figure out how to calculate how to catch how much water we need to catch to actually provide water for a place? Why aren't we using the things that they've already set in place to tell us that we got to test the kids on to be successful? Well, we don't. You know why we don't? Because it's work. It's like carrying that brick every day. So what we have to, and because you all are all here right now today, you've already decided that you want to carry the brick to build it. Now that you've decided it, now it's about creating that team of other bricklayers, other architects, other people that put the mortar together so that the things can sit together. It takes more than just a village. It takes villages to create this system to become positive. I'm one person by myself carrying one brick. But if I get all of you to carry a brick, and one day we've laid over 1,000 bricks, right? And every day we lay a new brick. Every day we figure out a new way. Every day we figure out a way that no one's out of sight, out of mind, that we're never better late than never, or that we're always better not being late, but staying on time to make sure everything gets laid, that more of us that are involved, the merrier it will be, and that the many hands will actually make light work because we're all carrying a brick to build the system better. So laying it one at a time, having constant conversation with each other, and figuring out what the bottom line is like every day, reevaluating, coming back to the table. Hey, I talked to you about this. This should be a report out. I challenge all of you right now, when you go back to whatever place you're going back to, and you start whatever practices that you've learned since you've been here, when you come back next year to the 9th, your conversation should be, here's what I tried and worked from the conference that I did last year. Here's what didn't work. Because that's the only way it actually grows. If there's no report out, there's no accountability. If you don't challenge yourself to report out, there's no accountability. And that is what I challenge everybody to do. Be accountable, stand up, and be counted.